I wonder how many chickens it would take to kill an elephant. Puzzling. Hello there, my awkward and smelly friends. I'm just kidding, you're not. You're not, friends. Welcome back to Modstorm, and in this video, we're gonna start building our game. We're gonna learn how to start modeling our terrain and bring in 3D models into that terrain, creating our own shapes, and go from there. Let's do it. First thing we're gonna need to do is click on the menu button here in the top left corner of your screen. Then go to editor. You should see a screen that looks like this. Let's start off with the mouse controls. First thing is right click to kind of like strafe left and right. Of course, the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and then left click to rotate. Now if you double click on a certain area on the map, it will teleport you there as well. That's basically all the controls with the mouse. Now then, let's begin crafting. First thing I'm gonna need is probably a terrain, some sort of landscape to start decorating with my game idea. I'm gonna be creating a parkour game, and for this, I'm gonna need some land. So let's go up to the top here where we have the terrain mode. Click on this, and I can choose from a small terrain, a small medium, or a medium, or a large. I'm gonna go ahead with a small. And now it's default to a flat terrain, as you can see right here. Kind of like that Minecraft flat terrain, right? But you can also choose random, and it will give it some lumps and bumps and mountains. If you click random again, it will just kind of randomize those lumps once more. Now I personally like to make these lumps and bumps myself, so I would go with a flat. And then we're gonna use some tools to model this terrain. Check it out. The paintbrush right below, go ahead and click that paint mode. Once you've clicked that paintbrush, you'll see that there's a lot of other tools that kind of show up, and we're gonna go through those one by one in this video. Let's start off with the first one, the paintbrush itself. With the paintbrush, you do have these paint and textures here below that you can choose from, and you paint them on the terrain. So let's click on the sand one here for a second, and holding shift on your keyboard, you're able to just paint the terrain. Just like so. With the other texture, you can paint it back over. This is a default one that was added to it to begin with. And then we got some dirt. Same deal. You guys get the idea. Next, let's look at the bottom here. We have the textures, right? Now, you can change the way that they kind of like scale in the pixel, like per block. So if I just zoom in here real quick, you can see what I mean. Zoom in here on the dirt. And if I just increase this, you can see how it kind of like more of that one texture is fit into that one pixel in a sense, if that makes sense to you. And then I can go this way where it's less. So you can see where it comes out to be kind of cool looking. Let's close the texture and go down into where it says water. Now, by default, all we have is just the land. There's no water around. You can turn this on by clicking the water on. And you see where the water kind of like covers the land. That's where we have the levels here, how high it is and how low it is. Now let's look at size. If we go down to the size menu here, you are actually able to make the terrain smaller or bigger if the smaller size wasn't as small as you wanted, or the big wasn't as big as you wanted. You can actually manually scale that right there. And then we have the height scaler. We will get back to that later. Another thing you can do in this menu is if you don't want to paint the sand, you can change this texture to something else that you would like prefer. So I'll click on the texture, and I'll go ahead and try to find some snow. And here's some snow right here. And we can change this to snow instead and paint some snow. So I'll collapse the size, and I'll collapse the water and the texture. Then finally in this menu, the top one here, which is commands, we skipped over this one on purpose. There's just not a lot in here that we want to talk about right now, so it will remain an unanswered question. That's right, just like the question I've always asked. I wonder how many chickens it would take to kill an elephant. Puzzling. Now back to the top, we have these arrows. These are for raising and lowering the map. So we click on the up arrow, and by holding shift and clicking anywhere on your map, you're able to create these mountains and lumps for yourself. And as you can assume, the down arrow would do just the opposite. There. Let's look at the other tools. With these arrows, you do have the options below of the strength of how much it does it, and then of course the size of your brush. So you can cover a bigger amount of land all at once before having to move to another spot. Let's go now to the fourth item in this list. It's the smooth terrain. Basically, you click on this one, and I will lower my brush size, and we can then smooth things out. So if we like the height of where this is, you can click smooth and it will smooth it out at that height right there. See? So it's not pointy in a sense. Next, we have the flatten. Now the flatten uses what's called a level right here as the level of where it's going to flatten your surface. Let me demonstrate. I will click flatten. I will hold it right here, hold shift, and I will try to flatten this, and flatten it to this certain height. No matter where I click on the map, it just flattens it to this height. Now this height is controlled by this. So if I increase this level, then I try to flatten again, it goes up a little bit. If I wanted to reach this level down here, of course I would just have to lower this lever, and now it's a little bit lower than the third one, and I can go a little bit lower again, and kind of like almost like create a staircase going up like so. So now that we've covered all of the tools and how to create your terrain and make it look beautiful, let's start adding some 3D models to actually bring some life and some ideas to our game. First thing we need to do is head back into the environment. Let's go ahead and click on this cloud icon, and then we'll see all of this stuff over here. To bring a 3D model in your game is really simple. Just simply drag and drop. Let's grab a car. Just like that. And I'll double click to go down here and take a look at it. You can see the terrain is pretty huge compared to this car, because your avatar would be about the right size as a real person next to a real car. This is my home on the farm. I live next to this one here. Now you also have some options for some custom shapes as well that you can create for yourself. So like a cylinder, you can bring those in, and a cube, and sphere, and so on, stairs and so on. With these shapes, you can manipulate the transform of the block by stretching them, making them bigger, taller, shorter, however you please. For example, down here where the width is for this block, I can increase the width, I can increase the height. Now you can change the way your blocks look by using these sliders if you like, or you can use the various tools at the top to manually do this yourself. For example, we have the drag tool. When this is active, you're able to click on something and just drag it along the surface. Then you have the transform tool, where you can drag it on certain angles of the XYZ axis and keep it on that angle as you go ahead and craft and design your game. Now we have the rotate tool as well. For example, you wanted to rotate something, you can always do that. Next, we have the scale tool, which is what these sliders do. But now you can do it manually yourself by dragging the correct angle, the correct axes of whichever one of these XYZ coordinates that you want. Now, what about testing the game? Simple. Go ahead and just hit play. This should spawn your character in, I believe, at the very center of your map, and then feel free to run around and check out the structures you've made. I'm going to go ahead and run over to where the car is and show you that you can actually hop right into it and start playing. Now that I've made it over here to the car, I'm just going to go ahead and press F when I'm next to it. And that is my interaction key, and I can run around. Now you can see that there's already physics with these shapes. I can't run through them, as well as the house and the ambulance and of course the terrain. Now you can see I can push, kind of like push that a little bit, and I create a little ramp here so I could drive up the mountain a little bit, and I can press F to hop back out of the car. Now for some questions and answers. Now this is recorded, so I'm just going to assume some of these questions that you would ask. Of course, I'm only going to ask the questions that I know the answer to. Win-win. Hey Mr. Leeton, can we change the texture of these objects? Well, first of all, you don't have to call me Mr., but yes you can. Simply select the object you want and scroll down here in the properties for that object. You find material. You can click and create. Give it a name that you want. I'll call this one test. Press enter. And then you can see the default object here. Feel free to click and change it to something else that you'd like. Let's go with brick. It's easy for you to find any other object, and then you'll find your test material there. And by doing so, we've also assigned that same object to that object, that same material to that object. That is not what I said earlier. Hey there, Leeton. Can you make it rain or snow? Yes we can, but we will cover that in another video. In this video, let's make it fog. You can go down here to this fog and just increase that intensity, and it creates a nice little fog. How to get back from the gameplay back into the editor mode. Just press escape to bring your mouse back, and then go here to the menu, and then go back to editor right here. Can we change the background color? Sure. If for whatever reason you don't like that blue, it damages your eyes, or you just want things to be very dark, feel free to go right here where it says background, click on the color wheel, and you can pick the color you like. If you place an object in the sky and play the game, will it fall? No it will not. We'll cover those type of physics later in later videos. Well, that's about all the questions that I can think of, other than what's going on with my hair. It's called waking up and pushing record. Just a quick recap of what we did today. We created a terrain, designed it, molded it, and now we're able to drag 3D elements onto that terrain, really crafting that game. So go ahead with what you've learned today and start crafting your game in the next video, where you start bringing things to life. As I always say, keep modding. I don't always say that. That's actually the first time I've said that.